In the world of Panthers sports, has there been a bigger decision than benching Bryce Young? I'm here to talk about the legacy or potential legacy of Dave Canales when making this decision. Folks, I sit here and it has been a whirlwind of a week. We cannot get the Panthers off of national radio, which is fine. I still listen to my local guys, but then pop over to national radio. We see all the clips, the videos, everything that is coming through. And as I sit here, I guess it's Friday night, getting ready for Andy Dalton to make his first start, I asked the question, is this one of the biggest decisions or the biggest decision that's been made in Panthers history when it comes to the roster? And maybe you talk about some of the trades. Those could easily be bigger decisions if you think so. Maybe it's the way they manage Cam Newton or whoever it is in a past situation, Steve Smith, Julius Peppers. There's a lot of players along the way that have been mishandled, mistreated, whatever it is. But when I think about this decision in particular, I think about two things. I think the legacy of Dave Canales is going to be tied to this decision, and the legacy of Bryce Young, and more or less, how does he manage it? So it's a big move for both of them. And when I look, and I got to start with Dave Canales. When we talk about Dave Canales doing this, we have a coach, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like he was not hired to help Bryce Young. That is part of the reason that he was brought in here, was to help the development of Bryce Young. There were defensive-minded coaches that went through the process, Ejiro Evero, there were experienced coaches, but he was the quarterback whisperer that helped Baker Mayfield, that helped Geno Smith, and he was brought in. And I know at this point in time, he is the head coach, and sometimes it's hard for fans and even me to remember that he is the head coach of the team. He is not Bryce Young's quarterback coach. He is the play caller. He is not the offensive coordinator, but all those things combined together, you can easily get lost in that and just want to say, like, why? It's almost like having the president of the United States, like, only focusing on one small thing versus running the entire country. And their job is to run the entire country. But we're here to talk about football, not about politics. Too close to that season right now. But when I talk about this as a legacy defining moment for Dave Canales, it has to do with him having, and I mean, really, it's him having the balls to do this. And now there are a lot of folks, and this is what I don't get. There's a lot of folks that believe Tepper wanted Bryce Young. And there are, I mean, like, if you had to give a fan vote and everything that we've heard, it's like 90-95% will push in that direction, that he wanted Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. And I don't think that could really be denied at this point. So I put that in perspective, that you have an owner of your NFL team that wanted this quarterback, that really thought he was going to be the savior, that talked about him as a point guard, that goes through this process and doesn't do well. So you go out and you're like, well, I know how to be successful. I messed up a lot of head coaches, but I've got the quarterback. Now I'm going to pair him with this offensive-minded guy who's going to get things right. And as someone, if this really was his guy that he wanted, for him to have Dave Canales walk into his office, because this is what I don't understand. Fans saying that Tepper did this. At what point would this man, and I've said it a few times, but why would this man want to sit back and throw up his hands in defeat? At what point in this whole thing with his impatience is he wanted to throw up his hands in defeat and say, oh, I lost, you're right, or I didn't get this thing right? It's easy to fire a coach, but when we're talking about a quarterback or a quarterback that he wanted, why would he do that? Why would he decide, oh yeah, you know what? Let's get Bryce out of there. That's the best thing for my franchise and everything that we've been through. I think in this moment, sure, he probably was informed, but when we talk about consulted or made the decision. I'm not buying it. And I firmly believe that. I believe that you have Dave Canales, and a lot of folks are like, oh, Dave Canales is not going to be able to stand up to Tepper, or we need this coach who can stand up to Tepper. Let him coach. Let him coach. Give us Bill Belichick. He'll let us do this. Folks, that's what you have unfolding in front of your eyes, but people are so focused on the fact that it's Bryce Young and it's 2 weeks into the season and it's kind of a crash course that didn't work, that he's pulling the plug, and people are losing sight that, hey, maybe this is a turning moment in this franchise's history, at least the short last 6 years of it, portion of its history, where we've actually got a decision that's been made by a coach in a front office that Tepper did not, say yes or no, you can or cannot do this. So that is my thought on this. So I think it's a positive moment. Now, to the flip side, with Dave Canales making this decision, this is going to make or break him, because there's really, I guess there's a few paths with this. One, Andy Dalton can look really good, which is great. You go out, you win some games. Maybe he's the answer for next season. That's like the happy path scenario. And underneath it, you have Bryce Young, who's willing to sit back and learn and watch and grow as much as you can sitting on the sideline running scout team. I mean, you have a number one overall quarterback that's never been put in this situation in his life at all. Not to this extent. I know he was working his way up when he got to Bama, but not in this same context. So you've got that path that, hey, maybe the happiest of happies. You have another path where what if he plays, as speaking of Andy Dalton, around average play or close to Bryce, or it's not much better? Are you then going to pivot? Because now you talk about waging the war of the locker room and the ups and downs. We saw what happened when Frank and Thomas were back and forth on calling plays. You cannot continue to do that. You've got to build out some stability. And I don't know if he's going to be in a spot, if Andy is failing, to want to go out and do this and say, all right, you know what? I messed up. Now I'm going to get Bryce back in there. So I think that's kind of your middle ground. The other is like, what if Andy is just absolutely terrible? And you go out there and it's the offense still looks bad. Everything around it just is not good. At what point do you make the decision to bring Bryce back in? And does he come back in this year? I just got off a podcast with Ryan Smith and we were talking about, when does Bryce make a return? And I feel like there's Panther sentiment that he will be here, that he's not going to get traded. I know national media wants him out of here as quickly as possible, but I think when people want him out, that's the thing about this. One, if he sat from the start, this would not be a discussion. Like, this would have all made sense. Let him sit, work it in. Because he's sitting at this point, we have a millennial mindset with our generation and everyone in the moment now, that because this happened, they now are like, oh, wait, my brain says that you cannot sit him now. This makes no sense, even though he's under contract for the next 4 years and you could pick up the fifth, and he's only in year 2. That's not how this works. So I think Dave Canales could potentially look even better if this does pan out. If Andy maybe does what he needs to hold him under his wing like he should have last year and help him move along, that, you could come out on the positive side of this. What I don't know is if we have this panning out and Bryce, for whatever reason, doesn't get back in there this year, I could see a scenario where if Andy is losing or it's not much better, that the Panthers possibly trade him by the deadline, even though I don't think so right now, but that's always a possibility. Or when you look at the last half of the schedule or towards the end of the season, you're like, okay, we need our last evaluation. Let's get this on tape and then make a decision in the offseason to get him off and trade him for, I don't even know what the trade value would be. That's the whole thing about him moving on. I don't even know what you're going to get in return. But it's legacy defining, because if this thing crashes and burns, it's not going to work well for Dave Canales in his first year. If Andy's bad, if Bryce is bad, he's lost both of those. He's lost trust, lost the locker room, and or others that may want to come here. And they definitely do not need to draft a quarterback, whatever happens next year. On Bryce's side, it's a big make or break moment for him, as we know, because we just haven't seen him go through anything like this. I think it could be good, but it's still weird. And I've seen him down in the dumps in a way that we really haven't seen him. And I can't tell you, as a competitor, I would be shocked, just like he reported, pissed, all those things. Nobody wants to be told, hey, you're not good enough, we're going to sit you out, and feel blindsided by that decision. There is a trust that's in that building that may not be there. Sure, it's a business, but it's like you walking into work today in whatever position you are and then being demoted back down to, I don't know, whatever job you work at. So you come in and maybe you're the head operations of the grocery store, and I'm making that up. And they're like, all right, we're going to convert you into a bagger or a bag boy. Like, think about that, whatever job you have, and then having to be happy with that. So it's a big moment. And I know Panthers fans like want to press fast forward. They want to see if this is going to work. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know. And I think nobody does. I think Dave Canales is hopeful that it can or will, but lots of questions to be had here in Carolina. This will be a developing story throughout the entire season, possibly into the offseason. And I will be here to give you my insights and thoughts on whatever happens as this shakes out. But until next time, folks, it's Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.